The Thundersock Show, a collection of valuable brainstorms to enhance your life, liberty, pursuit of property. My goal is that this conversation achieves all of the above. Rick Benton is a man of many talents. He is currently an EOS implementer, a Colby consultant. He is a newly become an Outgrow advisor, and he also had a sell event. And if you want to talk to him about the DJ business, you can probably do that too. Rick, thanks for coming on. How is it out in the other side of the country out there in Arizona?
Oh, it's beautiful out here. Thanks for having me on, Ross. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'd love to dive into anything that would be of value.
Let's do it.
All righty.
So, Rick, let me ask you, what's your Colby Index, and what is Colby Index?
I am what is known as a 5384. And I'm going to date myself here. And if you think of the old Bob Seger song, Feel Like a Number, my number is 5384. What that means is it's a representation. Colby is an assessment that measures how you instinctively take action. So imagine this way, Ross, if I were to show you a big room full of toys, and let's deal with 6-year-old Ross, okay? Take yourself back, 6 years old, room full of toys, and I say, hey, Ross, go build a fort. Colby's not going to tell me if you want to build a fort. There are plenty of assessments that can measure how you feel about building a fort. Colby's not going to tell me if you know how to build a fort. But Colby's going to tell me if you're motivated to build a fort and you're not given any instruction, so you're free to be yourself. Colby's going to tell me how you are going to build it. So the first number that I have is a 5, and that's what we call our fact finder. And the fact finder number tells us how we deal with information and data. So if you have a high number in fact finder, you're going to go out to this big room of toys and you're going to look around and you're going to think, okay, what kind of toys do we have here? You're going to maybe bring out a spreadsheet and log in. How many blocks do we have? How many dolls do we have? And how many pillows, blankets, what color, what fabric, all kinds of information. If you have a mid-range number, and I'm sorry, the scale is 1 to 10 on all of these numbers. If you have a mid-range number somewhere in the middle, I can take in some information, but not an overabundant amount. And if you have a lower number, we tend to just summarize our information. So it's like, I don't really care. I just want a general idea. Give me the bullet points. That's the first number. Second number is what we call follow-through. I'm a 3. And follow-through has to do with structure and order, how we deal with systems. So if you have, like me, a 3, I'm going to look at this room and I'm not really going to care about reading the instruction manual about how to build a fort. I'm just going to kind of go out there and try to build it on my own. But if you have a higher number, it measures how much you need to initiate with. You're going to read the instruction manuals. Here's the process. Third number is what we call quick start. That's how we deal with risk. And high initiating quick start is common amongst a lot of entrepreneurs because we can take risks without really worrying about how they're going to turn out. We initiate with just taking action. Hey, what happens if I stack all these blocks? What happens? How high can I build the pillows? Or what happens if I throw this block at my sister? I don't know. Let's just see. Let's try. If it fails, it's okay. I learned what doesn't work. Let's launch the rocket, see where it blows up. I know it's going to blow up somewhere. I'm going to launch it, watch it, and then I'm going to learn where some of the weaknesses are. Sound like any entrepreneurs you might know? And the last number is how we deal with the physical world. Do we need a physical model or can we just envision things in our head? Colby's going to tell me what kind of initiating action are you going to take most naturally? And when you have that, now I know, Ross, what kind of email should I send you? Should I send you 10 paragraphs because you need a lot of information and I need to expect that you're going to come back with more questions? Because I see on your Colby 7, 8, 9, 10 and Fact Finder, yeah, I'm going to give you as much information as possible. Or I see a 1, 2, 3 and I'm going to be like, hey, Ross, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. See you tomorrow. So I know how to communicate with you. I know what kind of details I should expect in reports from you. You're going to write me and just say, hey, Rick, we're going to get on the podcast tomorrow and we're just going to make it up as we go. Quick start. I don't know what he's going to talk about. Let's just try something. If it doesn't work, we'll edit it out, right?
Hey, that's what we have editors for.
Exactly. So Colby's going to tell me it's like a cheat sheet to how you work. when you are free to be yourself. And when you're free to be yourself, you're going to do better work. You're going to do it more efficiently. You're going to do it in a way that gives you energy, not drain you. So that's my Colby. Highly recommend everyone take one, because then we can actually see how you work together with one other person or as a team. If you have a team of a bunch of initiating fact finders, oh my gosh, they're going to do research and they're probably going to get lost in the weeds. If you have a bunch of quick starts, watch out.
So, Rick, you said 5-3 number.
Yes.
How many times have you taken the assessment?
Okay, the beauty about Colby is you take it once. Because it's instinctive, it doesn't change. Now, it might change a number here or there, but the overall pattern is going to be the same. You might go from a 5 to a 6 or 5 to a 4 over time, but for the most part, a quick start is going to be a quick start. These are instinctive traits that are built into the essence of who you are. Now, unlike, say, a Myers-Briggs or some other things that measure affective, which is how you feel about things.
Colby's the conative mind.
It's absolutely the conative mind. A lot of people don't know that word, but
I've done them. Well, I started with Myers-Briggs and I moved on. Done DISC and predictive index, Colby. There's like 2 different Colbys I've done. One was for leadership team looking at high seats, and then one was for yourself individually. And then one I like the most, which is absolutely not professionally credentialed, but it's like a database, is psychometrics. Which fictional character are you in popular culture? Absolutely. I've taken that several times, and my most often has been Ragnar Lothbrok, which I'm a fan of the show Vikings.
Okay.
But I've got this thought experiment for you.
Sure.
We've known each other not that long. It's first impression. If I were to tell you, if I had to ask you, what's the difference between a 7283 and an 8471?
Hold on. Let me just take a look at these.
I didn't anticipate before doing this to put a pop quiz.
Yes. Shouldn't have.
Hard left.
7283 versus a
8471.
8-4. So I just want to write them down so I can look back and forth at the numbers here. So they're both going to initiate in Fact Finder. The 7 and the 8 as the first number. 7283, 8472. So, or 71. The 2 in follow through is going to be more resistant to giving them instructions. And like, I was a teacher, and my principal came over and said, "I see you have a bunch of kids failing." It was COVID. Right. Nobody cared. And he said, here's a list of 20 things that you should do to help them. And 15 of those were repeat, call the parent, text the parent, email the parent. It's a complete cover your ass policy, because he said that way at the end of the semester, when the parent says, I had no idea your kid was failing. Well, I called you here. I texted you the kid.
Whole 9 yards.
Exactly. So I looked at the principal second semester. He came in for my review and he said, I see that your grades have gone up. Has getting in touch with the parents helped? I said, no, not at all. None of them called me back. None of them care. You're introducing more fear and scarcity into a system that already has a ton of it. What made the difference? I did it in 3 steps, not 20. 1, hey, Ross, you're not turning in your projects. Why? What's going on? And you told me, hey, my dad was a mechanic. I want to be a mechanic. I love cars. We love cars. I put in for 2 hours of auto shop. They gave me your class. Okay, and I was teaching photography and graphic design, of which I'm nothing, but that's another story. Stay 1 page ahead of the kids, right? I said, okay, screw the projects that we're on. They just released a brand new Corvette. It's down at the dealership. Go take some awesome pictures of the new Corvette using these styles, and whatever we're doing in graphic design, forget it. Just make me a magazine ad or make me a poster or something. So step 1, talk to the kid, find out what's going on. Step 2, adjust your projects to, or your learning style or whatever it is, to something that they're motivated on. And step 3, guess what? There's no step 3. A 1, 2, 3 in follow through is going to take a system, a logical set of instructions, look through it, break it down. Okay, this is stupid, redundant. Okay, this one's good here. And it's going to take 20 and turn them into 3 or 4. We need people. It's a strength to consolidate, to do things more efficiently. We also need people 7, 8, 9, 10 to actually establish the plan. Everything in Colby is a strength. Mm-hmm. Everything is a strength. There's not one thing.
There's no right answer.
There's no right answer. The wrong answer is what they teach you in school, that the teacher's way is the right way to do things. And we're going to quiz you to that. And the truth is that if we knew everybody's Colby and knew how they thought and acted cognitively, then we can actually tailor the learning and the doing to the way that people work most instinctively. And sadly, I tried to advocate to get Colby into the school. This is long before I really got involved with them. I learned about Colby from Strategic Coach, and they didn't care. It's too much. It's a broken system. And
the reason I asked you about those two different ones is because I took the Colby twice. Once when I was going through a career, what do you want to call it? Like an accelerator. Like it was just part of this educational program.
Okay.
And that was at a weird time in life where I was like dealing with a lot of personal, tragic events that happened. Right? I don't have to go into any sad stories, but it was like I was like probably lower time mental health for me. So I got a 7283, and then I took it a year later when I was with a client with their EOS implementer.
Yeah.
And the number, the first number was 7283 when I was not feeling myself, and then 8471 when I was feeling myself. And I'm like, the first and third were similar trend line, right? One number off. The second and fourth were two numbers off a piece. And it made me think like Snickers, you're not you when you're hungry. You're also not you when you're sad. So what is your experience on, or your thoughts on that, like anecdotal story of?
So I'm looking at these two numbers. I'm going to treat your fact finder the same. A 7 and 8, virtually the same. 4 and 2, they're also pretty close. When I said the curve is going to be pretty much the same, the 8 and the 7 in quick start, you're still a quick start. And the 1 and the 3 in your implementer, you're still kind of within the same range. You're only two numbers apart at the most, and one number apart at others. So when I say you take it multiple times, it's still kind of the same. It's going to tell you.
Same trend line is what we're saying.
Same trend lines, yeah.
Yeah.
So usually you go with the first one. I mean, if I were to retake it now, I think that my fact finder would be lower. I'm less in tune to details. I'm more in tune to summarizing. Let's go. My quick start might be a little higher. My experience in teaching told me I really have less patience for somebody telling me what to do and how to do it, and like to have to do it my own way. And the implementer, it's probably spot on. So, a little bit of accentuation in each of the action modes, but for the most part, I would be just a little more intense on who I already am. That's what this kind of told me about you as well.
If you knew what your Colby was back when you were in high school, how would that have affected? Would you have been like, oh yeah, that's exactly who I was when I was in high school? Or if that high school person was aware of the Colby index, like what are some of the ways you would have analyzed, what you were doing?
Okay.
That have affected your career trajectory? Or do you think that it was like, my trajectory was spot on my Colby? Like how's that look?
As far as career, Colby's not going to tell you a great career necessarily, but it's going to tell you how you take action. And like we said, there's no right or wrong way to do something. And every single one of these is a strength. But as it relates to how I would have been a student, I would have given myself much more experiential in the quick start. I would have not restricted myself so much with the follow-throughs and the instructions and things like that. That follow-through is going to say, I'm a rebel. I want to do things my way. I need to discover and learn and experiment. That 3 in follow-through and the 8 in quick start is the most dominating traits in my action modes. The rest of them are the 5 and the 4 is kind of mid-range, but I am an initiating quick start, which means I like to experiment and try things. And the 3 means I don't like to follow instructions so much. So, let me experiment. Let me go into labs more than lectures. Let me let's play with things. And as I look back over my life, that trend tends to hold true, both in my business and then after selling the business, and even now as an EOS implementer and Outgrow advisor, it's held true all the way through. Just as with you, I imagine you like to go deep on data and information. And I would ask you right now, what are you researching personally? What are you reading?
I'm looking at this point in time.
Yeah. What are you reading?
I'm looking at the notes that you've just said on Colby, and I'm verifying. I'm saying, okay, it tracks.
Yeah. Well, what outside of podcasts, just what are you reading? What are you researching? What are you curious about and doing more research on?
So the honest answer is a continuation of that. Like What I read the most now is usually in preparation for podcasts. But I recently had a guest. We talked a little bit offline about language usage and demographics and whatnot. But this guest, I had been following him in my mergers and acquisitions journey because he was like around the same age, and he was kind of like I like to follow people that are one step ahead on social media. He had recently wrote a book called The Creator's Call. And that's all about how stepping away from the most lucrative opportunities and following your inner calling is like probably the right thing. Very heavily influenced by Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey. I interviewed the guy. What's that?
The Alchemist or Hero's Journey, yeah.
Well, Paulo Coelho, one of my faves in terms of that. We did briefly touch on Eckhart Tolle. I wouldn't say. I mean, I liked his fortune cookie stuff, his quotes, sort of like how I like Bukowski.
Okay.
Like he has great quotes, but if you forced me to read all of his stuff in depth, would struggle. So to answer like what am I reading outside of work, it is.
Or not. It could be with work. It could just be.
I have. This is gonna make so much sense. I hope to you is the rebellious high fact finder. I was a philosophy and English literature major who loved British Romantic period. So like William Blake. That's what I studied in college because at one time I wanted to be a wrestling coach and English teacher. And then when I realized I didn't want to be an English teacher because like we know with Colby, we're kind of similar on this end. People telling me what to do and following a rigid plan and you have to do this for the sake of doing this. I was like, I'm way too rebellious by nature to do this. Hard left turn, which is great because what we do as, kind of coaches, consultant type thing, you get to be a teacher still, but it's you're in charge of the curriculum or, you get to like buy into the curriculum, not being force fed, dictated it. So big philosophy, English literature guy. I read 90% fiction and a lot of historical about. But now the coolest part about what I do in terms of podcasting is if I have a guest and I can read their book, like I'm going to read their book. So it gets me to, I love to have high fact finder learning about people. So like with you, you're like, oh, what are you learning about now? I was like, well, before the call, I was reading all about Rick, doing my research.
And that's what high fact, if you can look at somebody's Colby, look at their fact finder, and if it's a 7, 8, 9, 10, it's a safe bet to say, what are you reading? What are you researching? And they're going to tell you. Because they're doing something, whether it is within work, outside of work, they're doing research on something. It's what they do. And Colby's going to tell you what people do. It's action. It's how we take action.
And to quote Aristotle, I want to say, we are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence is a habit, to be summarized, paraphrased.
Yeah. Okay. I like it.
And I think everyone can be great at, but they have to identify what is it that their nature inclines them to do.
Right.
If you judge a kangaroo by how well it can swim versus how well it can jump, you're kind of cooked. So use Colby.
Exactly. It's fantastic. Colby is a very valuable tool. To get to the answer, I think this is really what it boils down to. When you read your Colby report and you have that positive affirmation that everything that you do, the way you take action is a strength, all of a sudden, there's not this question of I'm doing it wrong. It means that I'm doing it the right way for me. And if kids can be empowered, if adults could be empowered, if every one of us could be empowered with this knowledge and this understanding that I'm doing great and the way that I do things is the right way for me, there's no wrong way. I'm going to get there. I'm going to accomplish my task in the way that gives me energy, the way that I love working, and that's going to be most efficient for me. God, I mean, a lot of therapists would be out of business.
The sky's the limit. Well, luckily, what you get to do as an EOS implementer, I would assume that when you're going over core values, you're like, hey, these shouldn't be aspirational. You should be uncovering what exists. Like, who are you?
My favorite thing is I love the core values exercise. It's one of my it's because half the time they come in with core values. And then when they see, I just did this up in Colorado with a group, and it was like they went through this industry coaching program and they came up with some core values and they were nice. But then we went through ours and it was just so efficient. 1 or 2 words that summarized everything, took everything that they did before, just even made it that much more powerful. And then when you actually show them how we hire to our core values. We fire to our core values. We reward, recognize, and review our employees to the core value. That's how we build the culture that we want. The use of core values suddenly doesn't become a marketing thing that we put on the window or on the wall. It's defining who we are and what we value at our core by definition. And it's become such a powerful.
You can use it as a tool to say who you're not.
Exactly.
Right? It's a decision-making lens.
We will repel the wrong people. We will attract the right people. And when you do it even as a personal guideline, as, hey, let's go through this exercise personally. Who am I? What do I value? Who do I attract into my life? And wow, you know what? Here's exactly why, I don't like hanging out with that person and I feel better hanging out with that person. And why?
That's such a great frame, because one of the things I've asked you before about was, discussion topic of personal branding and philosophy and life perspectives and how those are sort of intertwined, but they do relate tactically to EOS. So what are your thoughts on, people ask me this once a week. They're like, what's your marketing superpower? As if I'm going to say like, oh, I'm a Google Ads wizard, or I know how to use C# in programming, not to like belittle the question, but like, I like to tell stories. And more than that, I like to hear other people's stories and get it out of them and share those with the world. Why do I do podcasting? Because probably my nature is to be high fact finder. Hey, let's do it. Let's have an organic conversation. I'm going to be flexible with that. Like, I want to hear the stories. Some people ask me, oh, what's your marketing superpower? It's like, well, telling and hearing stories and making sense of them. And guess what?
What is marketing?
What is marketing?
Marketing is telling the story.
Yeah.
Selling is taking the order.
Yeah.
That's about it. If you tell a good story, all the salespeople need to do is take the order. Marketing is like, your marketing should be so damn good that there's not a question if we're going to buy. There's nothing to sell. It's just, how many do you want?
I laugh at the age-old adage of the marketing department pointing this way, the sales pointing this way at each other. They should be going like this. Like, we're in the same direction. If I work with a client and their sales leader isn't my best friend, then I've failed my own personal expectation, right? Because my job is to be your wingman.
Well, that's where the proven process comes in. Mm-hmm. That having a consistent proven process. Let me see if I have one. I usually carry a couple in my binder here. And I have it here? Maybe it's in this one. I have Colby's, actually, I think. Yeah, here's Colby. And having a proven process, a diagram of how we work so that all your sales team is in line with each other. Here's the EOS one, the proven process diagram. Every one of our clients are going to go through this repeated cycle. So I talk to one salesperson, they're not going to tell me a different process than what somebody else is doing. It's a way to unify that message so that marketing and sales are both heading in the right direction. The worst thing that you could do is, how many times do we do it? We get on the phone, we don't like the answer from one salesperson, so we call another one. Don't like the answer that mom gave us? Go ask dad.
Amen. I have a three-nager. So a 3-year-old going on a teenager.
Oh boy.
And we're starting to feel it. Just happened a week or two ago. It's like, doesn't like that dad said no ice cream. Hey, mom. And she's like, absolutely not. And she's like, hey, dad. I was like, I didn't change my mind.
Exactly.
But another question I have for you, Rick, is as a teacher, as a coach, you had in the DJ business. What was the first thing? Like when you graduated from school, like, did you go right into the DJ business? Did you have something before?
Let's expand on that. So when I was in high school, a friend and I started a DJ business. I was a senior in high school. Is that junior, senior? One of those. And we were committed to this vision, late 80s, early 90s. We wanted to bring the concert-like experience to high school dances and birthday parties, bar mitzvahs, graduation parties, neighborhood, whatever we could. Lights and sound and smoke and strobes and lasers and all those. It's the late 80s, early 90s. Time of amazing concerts. And we had that vision and we caught on. And next thing you know, fast forward a couple decades, and companies multi-state, and we're providing audio-visual gear for corporate sales meetings. the big, you've gone to the conferences or the expos or whatever, and you see a couple screens on both sides, maybe a video screen behind the stage, all the lights, the speakers, the microphones, all the AV. And then on the weekends, we're taking that same pro gear out to bar mitzvahs and homecomings and turning high school gyms into Coachella without the parking issues. And you can imagine the levers that I'm pulling in that. I mean, between entertainers and admin and labor, those three personalities alone are so different to drive you crazy. I've lived Get 'em to the Greek, where I've flown to other cities to get an entertainer. Hey, Ross, come on. I'm here to get you on the plane. And I've flown up to that city just to get you on the plane.
Hopefully no Diddy.
No Diddy. But I sometimes wondered, what's going to be. I hope the pockets are empty as we go through TSA. What's in the bag? No.
Yeah. See no evil, hear no evil,
smell no evil, doggy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's enough to drive me crazy, and I love it. In 2018, somebody decided they loved it more,
and you sold.
I took the exit.
Man, that's like the dream, I think, for a lot of people.
It's the dream, but there is no dream. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of heartache. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of broken glass along the way. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of learning that, oh, wow, I could have done this better.
Yeah. Yep.
And I found myself working for a company that was implementing EOS. And I was like, oh my gosh, where was this when I had my business? I look back now and I think if I had Colby, if I had EOS when I was running that business, I probably wouldn't have sold it. I could have just put myself in the owner's box. Or if I did sell it, I could have sold it for another zero. Because I would have been run. That's how powerful EOS is. I could have sold my business for another zero or just sat in the owner's box and let it run. Because most entrepreneurs, I was an awesome DJ, then I was an awesome lighting designer, and we ran our business. I'm not saying it was terrible. Obviously, we built it up.
But you were all in. Like you put your blood, sweat, and tears in that thing.
Absolutely. And when you sell it, what you don't realize when you have a business, and there's plenty of information out there for this, but when you sell it, you lose your identity that you've had since you were in high school. Bingo. My first email address was livingenergy@aol.com. You sell it, you lose your email, you lose your phone number, you lose your title that you've had since before you were married, before you had any kids, before you had any kind of life. And here you are 30 years later, and you're like, who the hell am I? And it got to the point where it's like, what kind of value do I bring to the world? And there's a natural drop off, a natural depressing, ego crushing experience after you have such a high. You get a nice big fat check for selling a business that I like to say it's runway money. It's not playing on your runway money, but it's runway money. And suddenly you're like, who the hell am I? Aristotle, know thyself. Well, I knew myself as president of Living Energy Events and Production.
Your habits all change, right? You log into that email, driving to work, doing the same things you repeatedly. Now you have a new schedule and it's wide open. What do you do?
It's wide open without any definition. I found myself, I always like wanting meaning and purpose. So I'm like, okay, let's go be a teacher. And you end up taking a teaching job that pays not a respectable wage, and I end up being shocked at how little respect there is truly for teachers inside the industry. And maybe it was COVID, but generally we don't treat our teachers with nearly enough respect. We pay them crap. The old cartoon, the comic book the comic cartoon where in days past it used to be the parent yelling at the kids, why are you failing the class? And now the parent is yelling at the teacher, why is my kid failing the class? Is classic representation of what we look at as teachers. And it took, I say this all the time, the teachers learn more from the kids than the teachers can ever teach the kid.
Really?
Oh yeah, at least I did. And it took a couple kids, a few of them that I keep in touch with. And during that experience, when you are so lost and you're just in your own zone of trying to discover how you create value and what's your place in the world, and you're working for crap in a not a respected environment, as much as they say, it's still, and it takes a couple of, it's just.
It wasn't always that way in my perception. I think that when we were, let's say the 90s, 80s, and definitely even more so before that, it was a very respectable position. It was like, what did the majority of kids say they want to be when they grew up? That I can remember when in my era, like police, teacher, like military, professional athlete, whatever. But like the actual jobs, it was like public service. It was really where it was
You
at.
want to give back. And
Yeah,
what
public
was
service.
amazing to me is it was just a couple kids. Let's face it. You can't have the top 10% without the bottom 90.
Sure.
But a couple of those kids that really stood out, and they're the ones that, just a couple in particular reminded you, hey, you create value for me. I remember there's one kid in particular. In my view, I helped teach her that her voice had value and that she should stand up for what she believes in. And her experiences, as difficult as they were at that point in her life, will come back to serve her. And in turn, she taught me, hey, remember to love yourself too. And that you have value. And that this isn't the right fit for you. And that's okay. You're learning, you're growing. We all are overcoming whatever our obstacles are. And it's okay to be where you are and be true to who you are. And I've kept in touch with only a couple of them, a couple of those students. And as that lesson right there, each of the kids will teach the teacher far more than the teacher will ever be able to teach them. Because
I mean, I gotta ask.
Sure.
Is it the kids or the students? Because right now, what you do as an EOS implementer in the Colby, you still kind of teach, right?
Oh.
It's just not like
I tell people all the time.
You're still a teacher, right?
I get to teach people things that they want to learn that change their lives for the better, get a lot better paid for it. And and the students are, here's the catch. The students in the high school, the students were great. For me, it was the admin and the culture. It's a culture.
I've heard that.
Yeah, it's a culture of fear, scarcity, and shame in schools, in the public school especially, because political pressure, it's
all kinds of
the threats of what could go wrong are incredible. I respect the threats of what could go wrong, but it's but the kids, they want to learn. And one last story from teaching, even though this is not, there was one kid who, and I wish I remember his name. I would love to contact him. He was in my last hour, never did a damn thing. And I was like, dude, you're a senior. What's going on? Turn in something. I'd love to pass. And he told me, look, I have enough credits. I don't need this class. I don't want this class. I have enough credits to graduate. They're making me stay here. If I can't graduate, if I don't at least just come here and sit and do nothing. It's like, that's stupid. And then I asked, why aren't you at least doing something? And he said, my parents both lost their jobs in the pandemic. I'm working 30 hours a week over at Walmart as a greeter, and at nights on the weekends I do 30 hours as a night guardsman at some yard. I looked and said, you're putting in 60 hours a week and you're graduating? And I turned to my principal and I'm like, can I just give this kid an A? He's winning life. As far as I'm concerned, he's passing. And there was like, no, he didn't turn in any projects. He gets a 0. You have to fail him. And I'm like, oh crap. And I'm like, this kid is doing everything right. He shouldn't have to have a fail. And of course, I wasn't confident enough in a place in my life where I could just say, screw you. I'm giving him an A. And I wish I could turn to him now and say, you are still an inspiration to me. I learned about another example of dedication and family from the example that this 18-year-old kid set in defiance of a stupid, pointless grade in a graphic design class.
It reminds me of Dead Poet Society with Robin Williams, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
I always say, the good teachers get fired. They fired Robin Williams. They fire all of them. The ones that want to buck the system. I've never met a system, an organization that is so intent on doing things the way that they've always done them because this is the way we've always done them. And we all know that is a deathbed for any company.
That's the antithesis to learning, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we were in there on our Zooms during the pandemic, and I'm like, guys, why aren't we experimenting left and right with this online learning? Such a unique opportunity because buildings are expensive, transportation's expensive, heating and cooling is expensive. This is going. Online learning is going to come into play sooner or later. And if we don't get really good at it, somebody else will.
Well, you were seeing that happen. I don't know if you're keeping up with what's happening with school.com, these online learning communities.
They're all, Primavera online school. And I know that a lot of them have issues. There's social components. Kids need to get together. But is it 5 days a week? Maybe. Is there things that they can do online then they come to school and we can emphasize more of the social, emphasize more of the experiential, more labs, more discussions? Some of the best discussions I ever had is when I said, okay, guess what? Project's been assigned. Let's talk about what's on your mind. We're in the middle of the most, at the time, the biggest health scare, political upheaval. The world's going to hell in a handbasket. Guys, you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. What's on your mind? Just have an open, honest conversation, which is funny because that's what we do with the leadership teams. And how valuable is that? And some of these kids, were like, my parents are they're yelling at me. I can't study, but I can't focus. I'm in my room all day. And I remember looking at this one kid and it came I don't even remember thinking it. It just came out naturally. I said, you need to look at your parents and forgive them. They don't know any better. And we've never done this before. And I remember just sitting there, I'm like, wow, where did that come from? I'm like telling a 14-year-old to forgive their parents because we all haven't done this before. And that's throughout all of it. That's the angle that nobody in the school district ever took. Hey, guys, we're doing the best we can.
As someone that, by my nature, bucked the system of education, and I still, for whatever reason, call it a mix of ADHD diagnosis with gifted at the same year.
Sure.
Okay. The teachers that I had the best relationship with that I still remember, can remember lectures verbatim. I just, have these vivid memories of, were the ones that would admit that they had screwed up, lives. They had gone through some shit. The ones that have actually experienced negative things, because they were, to me, the most real teachers who were like, we're doing this so that you don't have to have the same mistakes that we had. And whether that was teaching English or teaching history, or who really doesn't matter the subject, Jim, who cares?
It's the relationships.
But the relationships are what mattered. And those teachers, let's just say I've had 100 teachers in my life. I don't know. Who knows? Went through college. There's 4 that I'm still if I had none of the other teachers and only you guys, I probably would have been just as fine as I am today. And it sounds like you really resonate with that, where it's you had the ups and downs with the identity of selling your business, which a lot of teachers, I would venture forth and say, ain't too many teachers, period, that left an exit to do what you did, which I think is admirable.
1 year. Yeah, I thought it was noble. It turned into one of my train wrecks for a number of reasons. And definitely, I've made my share of mistakes and apologize to everybody that I've wronged along the way. You know who you are. And
yeah.
And I love this line from the guy's name is Howard Falco. And he writes in a book, both I Am and a book that just was released, Invincible, a local guy here in Phoenix. And he says, look, you have to understand, forgive yourself, because if you could have done better, you would have. You did the best you can. If you could have done better, you would have. And I sit with that and I think, I know I didn't want to hurt anybody along the way, just know a better way. Or, a lot of times things just don't end up as you plan. And that's okay. And that is life. Life is a series. Nobody's life is a hockey stick that just goes up. You're going to have tremendous, or if you're lucky, you're going to have tremendous upswings, tremendous downswings. You're going to love passionately. You're going to fail miserably. And you're going to get back up.
Yeah, to err is to be human. And if you never make a mistake, you might be a robot, you might be AI. Yeah. But even AI makes mistakes. But yeah. I think that the other side of the spectrum, not to disparage any of the past teachers, but there was a few teachers that I knew that they knew they wanted to be teachers when they were in elementary school, got straight A's, went to every class, attended everything, never did a thing wrong in their life, in my mind, my perception of them. And then they just continued what they were good at, which was school, the public education system. They became teachers, and they're like, I'm going to reinforce the rules that I feel so safe and comfortable in, which couldn't be great for some people, but for people like probably you and me, sucks.
Brings it
So,
back to Colby. If
yep.
we knew the Colby, if you're a high fact finder, high initiating fact finder, follow through, school is awesome for you. But how many valedictorians go on to be titans of industry? As a matter of fact, most of the titans of industry, the people who are out there on the cutting edge, the people who are leading the way, they got out of school. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, they're out. They're not, they can't be constrained by a system like that. They need to go out there and pave. There's no place for breaking the rules and being cutting edge. I got in trouble for passing out Think and Grow Rich.
What?
Yeah. I'm teaching photography and graphic design.
Think and Grow Rich is what every entrepreneurial person
Dale
should
Carnegie.
read in the very beginning before they do anything.
Yeah, well, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill,
Yeah.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, we had discussions about, and Four Agreements.
Okay. Yep.
It was kind of heavy religious, like public school, but there was a lot of a particular religion in the area, and they were pretty dominant. And it's like, and I remember thinking, I literally, principal's words, why are you having book studies with these kids? And I was like, are you telling me I shouldn't encourage them to read?
Yeah.
And that wasn't it. That was
One of my favorite Bill Hicks jokes is he's reading at a diner, and the waitress goes, "What are you reading for? Not what are you reading? Why? Like, what are you reading for? Why are you reading?"
Mm-hmm.
And he just, wrong question.
And I remember thinking it to myself, the issue with the Four Agreements is Toltec in a different perspective, which interferes with parents' rights to their own values. And I'm like, their own values? Be impeccable with your word means the same thing as don't bear false witness against thy neighbor, which means the same thing as honor thy covenants. Which religion am I violating by saying it as be impeccable with your word? When somebody is distraught, what value, how is, I will not take anything personally, or I will always do my best, or, what's the fourth one there? Personally, always.
Values are like Colby's, Rick.
Yes.
Where, like, you can value something more or less, but it's still a positive if you value it. When, this is an Aristotelian thought, it's when you take something, it's the golden mean frame, where when you take a quality and you have it like in the golden mean, which is the right balance between the two, then it's a value, like almost no matter what it is. But when you go one way or the other, and I'll just use fitness for example. You can either be anorexic, bulimic, and like have body dysmorphia where your body is being damaged, or you can be morbidly obese where you have an unhealthy relationship with food and you become, but like the rational mean in the middle is probably proper nutrition. But like when it comes to values, you can have arrogance and hubris, or you can have recklessness, and that's part of the same thing. Or you can be so shy and have discouragement, or you can be brave, right? Like there's there's a spectrum, and you want to go in the middle. It's like, what's the difference between stupidity and bravery? I think bravery is saddling up when you're afraid and knowing the consequences and acting virtuously regardless. And I think stupidity is acting without forethought, not even considering the consequences, with no consideration for positive or negative implications.
Well, what does Dan Sullivan say? It's like, when you really break it down, being scared or having fear is wetting your pants. Being courageous is doing what you have to do with wet pants. It's really, all of those, when you have that value, if you value being courageous, you charge forward. And, just to go back to a few of the students as I watch them now, and just a couple of them, the ones that I was inspired by, they're standing up there, they're doing what they want to do, they're fighting the causes for what they believe in, and they're true to their soul. And if I could have had one little bit in their lives at that age, and now I can turn around and I can bring this to adults and allow them to fight for what they believe in and help them organize their thoughts and their companies and use a system that increases efficiency and teach them these tools. I mean, that is the greatest gift out there. And getting there takes courage. Getting there takes bravery. Getting there takes a lot of wet pants. I mean,
I think one of the most rewarding things about speaking with you and knowing the work that you do and the work that I try to do as well, I can only summarize it in a quick story. And I didn't teach for a year, but I've coached. I was a lifelong martial artist. So I've coached wrestling and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and things like that. And one of the students, my alma mater, I went back there for a short period and coached. I remember him being like made fun of and the oddball kid and probably one of the worst kids overall on the team. And then I figured out why. I learned that he was in a car accident when he was younger, where he was in a coma for like 3 weeks and had like a traumatic brain injury. And it's like, that's not his fault. The guy was a kid, and then his parents would beat him, and he had to live with his grandparents, and he had to ride his bike all over town. He worked, like you said, 20, 30 hours a week just to afford his own, to support himself at like 16, 15. He couldn't drive. And he would still, and then he would figure out where I was coaching in the off season and go and show up there. And the only one on the team. The next year, he has like a pretty respectable record as a starter, goes from the worst kid on the team to like not the worst at all, like not the best, but the biggest improvement by far. And he goes from probably not graduating high school and having no idea what he wants to do with his life and almost failing out to join the military. And then and I look at it like, yeah, he didn't win a state championship, but he turned his life around. And I think those types of transformative things, it's like it applies to Colby, it applies to EOS. It's like it applies to one of the books and authors that you mentioned, Mark Manson. Instead of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, How to Unfuck Yourself. I think the first step to improvement is to unfuck yourself.
Or just recognize how fucked up you are. And when I mention the kids that are fighting for what they believe in, one in particular used all the things that the stories that I was told, used all the things that happened to her as motivation, as tools, as experiences. That, okay, all these fucked up things happened to me, and I'm going to use them to fight, my battle, make the world a better place. And I'm going to go out there and advocate for fixing these things in our society. And there's nothing more inspirational that I can look back and just say, you know what? That gives me hope for the future. That means that that there are people who care. And every time, that's where it is. And that's really what this is all about. Whoever you're teaching, whoever you're coaching, whoever you're helping them achieve their dreams. When I said the teacher learns more from the students, I'm inspired by that every single day. And I'm inspired by whether it's the students that I taught in a high school setting, the leadership teams I work with, and seeing their success as they grow, as they implement these systems, as they live better lives, as they live an EOS life. And with the Outgrow, going to be able to increase sales with companies in a positive format. Didn't even get into that this time around, but it's all about teaching. It's about coaching. It's about helping each other. And at the end of the day, why are we here? What's the most rewarding things we do? It's when we help each other.
Leave the place a little better off when you're gone than when you got there. I think everyone, it's not what you take with you. You don't take anything when you're gone. It's what you leave behind.
In the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make.
John Lennon?
Yeah, Beatles.
What are some of the books that you're reading? I think in order to be effective at teaching, you have to be a constant learner or student yourself. And like you said throughout the show, it's the teacher learns more than the students. I have found time and time and time again that when I think I know something, reality just slaps me in the face, but like, you don't. And I try to have a childlike curiosity when learning things. I don't claim to be an expert, which I claim to be a lifelong student, but like that philosophy served me well. What are some of the things that you continually do to stay as a student, as someone that keeps learning?
I mentioned, you mentioned Mark Manson. The day after I sold my business, I had a stack of books this high, and I realized that, I need to get through these quickly. I downloaded Audible, and this is in 2018. First one I did was Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And I read through it, or listened to it. I was like, holy crap. Listen to it again. And since then, there hasn't been a day that Audible hasn't been on at some point, or I haven't been reading. I mentioned the Howard Falco book, this one right here.
Oh, I've read that.
It just came out.
Well, I've seen that.
Oh, yeah, it literally just came out. His original one, right here. This is the one I just finished.
Hmm.
And it's all about just your personal understanding of who you are, what your values are. And I am is this understanding that I am under no obligation to be today the person I was yesterday. And who I am today is exactly who I decide I want to be today. What are your core values? What do you believe in? Who do you want to be? If I want to be a phenomenal EOS implementer, I can do that today. And I sold my business. I went from, okay, some people saw me as a DJ. Some people saw me as a production company. Some people saw me as whatever they did. That's great. What did I see myself as?
Yes.
I saw myself as somebody who sold a business. Now I'm going to be a teacher. Now I'm going to help somebody launch a business. Now I'm going to be a Colby consultant. Now I'm going to be an EOS implementer. That's all jobs. Other people define it other ways. I'm going to be a husband. I'm going to be a father. I'm going to be a brother. I'm going to be a coach, whatever it might be. I'm going to be a teammate. Who do I want to be today? And it has nothing to do with who you are tomorrow. So books that we were looking over that, I feel like pulling up my Audible list. You can imagine. It went from Subtle Art, 12 Rules for Life, were some of the original ones, catching up, rereading Napoleon Hill, all the ones I mentioned there, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Four Agreements, some of the favorite business books that are up here on the wall, Never Split the Difference, obviously all the traction stuff. I'd be remiss if I didn't say whole traction library, Joe Polish, What's in It for Them, which is a newer version of The Go-Giver, in my opinion. Let's see. And like Gino's latest book, Shine, but also get into Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. You want to get into the woo-woo stuff, like totally out there. Brian Weiss, Many Lives, Many Masters, or Dolores Claiborne, Between Death and Life, Journey of Souls. Last year, there was a great version of Mention the Alchemist, read by Jeremy Irons, the voice of the original Scar in Lion King, and that's phenomenal. That was probably influential last year.
You should check out anything by Ken Wilber if you're into that. Have you heard of Ken Wilber?
No, I haven't.
His MO is the integral theory. So like his largest book is The Religion of Tomorrow, Integral Psychology, Integral Meditation. I read like a few of it, but like it's so dense. But you would really like, I would think you would check like that if you're into the word woo woo. It comes with a negative connotation, but really,
it does.
But really, what we're talking about is like, okay, non-denominational religion. Like, what's the purpose? It's to
spirituality.
It's something with spirituality. It's not anything weird. Like, it's just like observation of spirituality, and everyone,
exactly.
You know, whether people want to admit it or not, we all worship something. It's just like identifying what is that we worship.
What is that source?
Yeah, what is
that? What is that ultimate source? What's that energy? What insights do we have, or can we figure out about why we're here, where we came from, where are we going? You know, Nobel Prize winner just proved that we are living in the Matrix. So, what do you make of that, and how do you live your life accordingly? How do you manifest? I love Joe Dispenza because he brings the biochemistry and the spirituality and the science of meditation, merges them, and manifestation merges them all together and says, hey, you don't need to go take a ayahuasca pill. You can just generate that on your own. Here's how. Here's how to tap into the infinite. Here's how to tap into a deeper understanding using that, where you're going with meditation. And, there's insights out there. There's people who have had experiences that are worth exploring, as everybody's experience is unique. And like I said, I've tried to do well by everybody, and I know I've screwed up along the way. And we all have. And we all just need to learn from it, and we need to understand that we're doing the best we can. As Howard Falco wrote, if I could have done better earlier, I would have.
Well, the teacher's got to keep learning. And I think that's a good way to put a cap on the convo, Rick. It's been a pleasure. It's been a very heady, high-level conversation with ties back to business, but more so about the business of being human and how we can all help each other to do so. The last question is super not deep, but it's where can people find you to connect and learn more about what it is you're all about?
Sure. My EOS implementer email is just rick.benton@EOS Worldwide. You can also write me at rick@rickbenton.com. And, cool. Easy. Love to get into some conversations. Love to learn about what you're doing, both business-wise. What's your why? Why are you working? Why are you doing this? I ask all my teams when we get into core focus. Why did you start this business? and why are you working here? What are you working on? And that's fascinating conversations. Get rickbenton.com. Phone numbers and contacts are available. LinkedIn, Facebook, the usual.
Right on. Well, for everyone listening, I appreciate you listening so far. I hope that you took this conversation and you can take some nuggets out of that to improve not only your pursuit of property, your economic gain, but really your liberty in your life, to improve your spirituality and the way you think about things. And if that's the case, then we had a great conversation, mission accomplished. And also, my ask is to share it with a friend. That's the only way the show grows. I don't run ads. Until next time, everyone, be well.
Thank you.